Well, hi once again, everybody. Welcome into what's going to be an awesome edition of Pick Your Politics. I'm your host, Dennis Silvers. Glad to have you with us on whatever platform you're checking us out. And we've got a terrific show today because we have a terrific guest. And as I mention every week, there's a lot of races going on right now. We're getting ready for a big mayoral race here in Las Vegas. We have a Senate race going on, and our guest today is running for the U.S. Senate, and we're going to talk to him and find out what his philosophies are pertaining to a lot of issues that are of concern to most of the people in the country. And I think you're going to find it very, very interesting, and at the end of the show, we'll let you know how you could help out if you're so inclined in various ways. But before we get going, let me tell you a little bit about our guest, Mr. Tony Grady, Jr.
Yes.
I have that right, yeah. Tony currently is the Republican candidate here for the U.S. Senate to defeat the current senator here, Jackie Rosen. Tony is a retired lieutenant colonel who served in the U.S. Air Force, and thank you for your service for that, by the way. He is also a retired FedEx pilot, which I found out. So that's not why my packages have been late, right?
Right.
That must have been an interesting job. Tony built his career first by flying a B-52D. We'll find out more about that. And also flying several test flights as a test pilot in the development of the B-2 bomber, which I'm sure you're familiar with. He commanded the 420th Test Squadron prior to his retirement from the military. Tony is married and a father of 4. So anyway, like I said, I don't know whether salute or shake your hand. Welcome to the show, man. I'm glad. I know you're busy, and I'm glad you took time out to come on. And let me start off by asking you, Tony, in your opinion, what's the primary job of a U.S. Senator coming from Nevada?
To represent Nevadans.
Okay.
And they represent Nevadans because, of course, senators are legislators.
Right.
So they work with the House in terms of legislation.
Right.
But senators advise and consent. So that gets into the realm of helping the executive branch in terms of what it does. Right. So we have our 3 areas of government, the judicial, the legislative,
right.
and the executive.
Right.
So we are in the legislative portion, and we advise and consent. We work with treaties, confirm judges, and the biggest thing in the legislation is working with the House on budgetary issues. So those are the major things that senators do.
Right. Yeah. No. And you guys stay busy. What were the deciding factors for you wanting to become involved in politics in the first place?
Well, I have to tell your viewers that I did fall down and hurt my head, so that's why. But the real reason is this. We got associated with Nevada 42 years ago. And I shouldn't say we because this was before I was married. But I came to my first red flag, which is the mock air war that we fly out of Nellis here. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, I flew over Nevada at 600 miles an hour. So I deployed to about 4 different red flags over my career and came to Nevada and saw it that way. I was never stationed in Nellis, but I became familiar with Nevada. Now I walk the trails in Nevada about 2 miles an hour. So that's what I do.
Okay, yeah, that's a little bit different.
A little bit different. But what caused us to come is that towards the end of my FedEx career, I had a good friend who is a rancher in Fallon. And he said, you should take a look at Reno, because we were thinking about moving to Texas. Being a military man, having lived in a lot of communities,
right.
we knew we would be accepted into any community, and we chose Nevada. And we chose it because we liked the high desert, we
Right.
liked the mountains. The sunshine was great,
Yeah.
but it was the people. So it's important for people to know that. It was the people in Nevada. So we came here expecting just to mind our own business. Well, somebody in the air races found out I was a pilot. I got sucked into the air races. So I worked the air races for 4 years
I didn't
up
know-
in Reno, and I was
didn't know
the
that myself.
I was the air
That's
boss. I was the air
great.
boss for 2 years. And yeah, you didn't know that. And it's part of, well, when you're working in the community, you don't go around, you just
Well,
do, you just
right,
do
you do
things.
it.
You
Right,
just do
yeah.
it. So I was the air boss, good cop, bad cop, try to keep people from running into each other
Yeah.
in the ground and that sort of thing. And I also did some work with UNR in terms of their innovation center. So they have a little incubator. It's actually kind of like an incubator, but it's mainly there to advise businesses that have been in business less than 5
Okay,
years.
okay.
And to try to help them along.
Right.
And since I ran a small biotech business for a while, they wanted me to help. Now I'm the guy that they had to show what happens when your business eventually doesn't go as well as you want it to go. But
Yeah, and that happens.
but
That happens.
when you run it for 11 years, you learn a lot.
Right.
And ours was very cutting edge.
Yeah.
We were partnering with the Cleveland Clinic and some other things. So some high-powered hospitals. And anyway, don't want to get into that. But the reason I wanted to give you that background is that it's important to understand that being involved in the air races, being involved with UNR, showed me what was happening with education in Nevada.
Yeah.
And I realized that Northern Nevada's objective, and I'm finding out Southern Nevada also has its objective, but I was living in Northern Nevada, want high-tech companies to come into Nevada.
Sure.
And I was sitting there going, with the workforce that will be needed for these, the education system is not supporting that. That was
agree.
singularly one of the major things that got me into politics. And so I ran for lieutenant governor and just got edged out in the primary by Stavros. It was great. As a first political run, I won 13 of the 17 counties. It's important that your listeners understand that, is because it shows that Nevadans want my leadership, because I'm not a politician. What they saw is somebody who had a track record of achievements and was sincere.
Yeah.
So what caused me to get into this race after that is that Nevadans have stated, I think, by the lieutenant governor race, that they like Tony Grady and want Tony to represent
Yeah.
them. I do not like the direction our country is going in. I have 4 children, 4 grandchildren. I want something better for them in the future. So I have the skill set to serve in the United States Senate. I have foreign policy background. I understand military strategy. I understand the budgetary process. I understand the economic instrument of power. So not only do I have a passion to improve what's happening, but I am also well positioned with the proven principled leadership
Yeah.
to be able to work in the Senate.
Yeah.
Those are the reasons that I'm running. And why? Because Jackie Rosen has failed leadership. The Biden administration has failed policies that are costing Nevadans about $5,000 more a year in their pocket. Gas is up around $5. Those things should not be in the United States, and I want to take those skill sets to help get our country back on track. That's why I'm running for Senate.
Here, good for you, good for you. And other than that, Jackie Rosen is, we have 2 Democrats that are up there that are Democrats. We need a change. We need somebody like Tony that's going to kind of help level the playing field. I've reached out to Jackie Rosen and I go, look, I've had on most of your opponents. I'd like to give you equal time. And she's afraid to come on the show.
Well, the reason that I think that that's apropos is that I'd like to tell a little story, because stories, I think,
Go ahead.
are, they're the picture that paint 1,000 words. But since I've declared, I've been in all 17 counties. So, because I'm going to be the Nevada state senator. So when I was going through Eureka, I met the sheriff there, very great individual, Jesse Watts. he was telling me that he goes to Congress on a regular basis to speak to Congress on law enforcement issues. So one of the times when he went to Washington to speak on law enforcement issues, he tried to make an appointment to speak to Jackie Rosen, and her office refused. She refused to see him. And so I want people to get this around, that this is a United States senator who wouldn't talk to the chief law enforcement officer and wouldn't talk to a constituent. I guarantee that when I'm elected to be Nevada's senator, if I can't talk to a constituent that travels all the way to D.C. to see me, somebody in my office is going to talk to them, because we serve the people. So what I wanted to say is that it doesn't surprise me that she wanted to come onto the show, because I'm wondering how much of Nevada she's actually visited. And I'm wondering, in terms of the failed Biden policies that she's rubber stamped, what her reasons would be for supporting all of that. So it doesn't surprise me that she wouldn't come on the show.
And you look like the type of person anyway. You enjoy people, that you would enjoy getting out, meeting with constituents.
Yes.
Talking about their concerns,
Yes.
having them ask you questions, saying, Senator, what can you do about this? We can't afford to go food shopping anymore. What's going on?
Right.
And that's all part of the job, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, Tony Grady is our special guest here on Pick Your Politics. He's a candidate, Republican candidate, running for the office of U.S. Senator. So remember that. What are some of the specific issues that concern you? And I know there are multitudinous issues here that are important to people, but some of the specific issues here in Southern Nevada that you're concerned about.
Well,
And there's a whole plethora of
lots of issues.
Lots of issues.
So one of the things that Jesse talked to me about, continuing with Jesse, is that when he was in Washington, D.C., talking to Congress, they were discussing this front yard, backyard policy. So the front yard, backyard policy is that whatever happens to the border states is the front yard. Not too many weeks later, it's happening here in Nevada and other states, because we're the backyard. So Jesse Watts showed that there is an exponential climb of deaths in Eureka that are directly attributable to people entering our country illegally.
Wow.
So my priorities as a United States Senator would be, first, get us back to being energy independent, because when we are energy independent, it will cause all the rest of the cost in the supply chain, i.e. your food in the store, to go down in price.
Right.
That will
Absolutely
start to eat away at inflation.
Yeah.
So we need to open the Keystone Pipeline, drill in Anwar, and give real leases. So energy's first. Then second, as I was talking about Jesse, is securing the border, because we need security. We need to stop human trafficking, which is today modern day slavery. We need to stop fentanyl, which is the biggest proportion killer for our citizens from ages 18 to 45. We need to stop that. And then again, it will cause more security in our cities when we stop allowing people to come here that we haven't vetted. We have laws on the books for how people need to come, and we need to deal with those asylum laws. But if we fired Mayorkas and put a secretary in there, and again, that's in the advise and consent area. If we fired Secretary Mayorkas and put somebody in there who would support our laws that are on the books, and we build the wall and secure that border, that would start. I mean, these are things that we can do in short order.
Right.
And then the third most important thing that's going to affect Southern Nevadans, the United States needs to get back to its proper place in world affairs. When the United States leads the world does better, and they expect our leadership.
Yeah.
Why do they do that? Because we're a pluralistic society. We have people from all over the world. We have, people that speak many different languages, have different backgrounds, and we've done well. It's only under the failed Biden policies that we have problems now. We didn't have a myriad of problems. I mean, we're always going to have problems. There is no such thing as a utopia. But when the United States performs correctly, there's more peace in the world. And I think that because 100%. Of Biden's failed leadership, we have the aggression that's in Ukraine, and we definitely have the problem with Hamas totally doing horrendous things and attacking Israel. So those are my three priorities: getting us energy independence, securing our border, and getting us back to the proper place in foreign policy. That's what my goals are.
And those are three good ones. And I think if you went out and you asked somebody on the street, they would agree with you, because that affects everybody's lives. What are some of the things that we have to do, and I say we, this country has to do to get back to having equal justice in this country?
Well, we need to have legislators that are leaders. We need people that will enforce our laws. So one of the problems that we have right now is a government out of control. Mm-hmm. Okay. In the aftermath of COVID, we've seen that we've had a coercive federal government, coercive local governments. Yeah. So we need to elect leaders who understand that they serve the people.
Right.
If I could just give a little bit of background on myself, because I'm speaking from a passion viewpoint, but I want people to know why I became this passionate. My parents grew up in the Jim Crow South, where in that particular era, it was not a favorable era for them. But you know what? My parents didn't view themselves as victims, and they focused on education. And eventually my dad, who they were born poor, but my dad eventually became a college professor, and he was helped along the way by people. Mm-hmm. There were actually benefactors that helped each of my parents. And that I'd like to talk about, and I'll just give you a little hint. I've written a book that's going to hit the markets here pretty soon, and it goes into that background.
A pilot and an author. Oh my goodness, that's a bonus, folks. Now, when's this thing coming out?
Well, I hope very soon. And I tell you what, you'll be the first to know. But we're within weeks. I mean, we're in the final stages.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're in the final stages.
Can you give us a title? Are you allowed to do that, or do you want to do that?
No, I will. But it's called American Values, Another Voice, a memoir by Tony Grady. So what I'm going to do is talk about that. So I've talked about my parents. Dad eventually got into foreign service. I lived in Africa. I lived in Lagos, Nigeria. I graduated from high school in Bangkok, Thailand. I got to see the United States from the outside and the inside, and became very patriotic. In becoming patriotic, I went to the Air Force Academy, and I became a pilot. I became a test pilot. I commanded the B-2 Stealth Bomber Test Squadron, as you talked about, flew some of the first flights. I worked in the Pentagon on what we call the Air Staff. I was responsible for the bomber portion of the president's military budget. So 20-year Air Force career. Then after
That's
20 years for FedEx. And in the middle of that, the most important thing that your listeners need to know, I've been married for 40 years.
Wow.
I have 4 children. I told you I went to the Air Force Academy.
Yeah.
Children don't listen. My oldest went to Annapolis, and the baby went to West Point. And I have a molecular biologist and a personal trainer who runs their business. And so the reason I want your listeners to know, I could dote on my kids for the rest of the show.
Oh, I'm sure.
This is what's important.
Yeah.
They're successful.
Yeah, that's great.
I know how to help young people be successful. We need to elect leaders that want all American children to be successful. That's the leader that I'm going to be. Yeah. So these are some of the things that I have passion about. Another thing is that I shared with you that I ran a small company for a while. So when you look at all of these things in the Republican field right now of everybody running for U.S. Senate, I am the only one that has the complete skill set of being able to talk about foreign policy, military strategy, the economic instrument of power, domestic issues, all of those. And the point that I want your listeners and viewers to understand is that if we are going to unseat an incumbent, we need to have a candidate that has something for non-traditional Republican voters to look at. I'm the candidate that presents that. So I wanted to give that background because we've been talking a lot of interesting things.
Great. That's good.
But the important thing is we need to win this race.
Yeah,
Because we need
true.
to change the direction of Washington.
That's very insightful, Tony. I totally agree with you. If you had your choice, what committees would you like to serve on as a U.S. Senator?
Well, I'd like to serve on the Armed Services Committee, Interior, because of the issues with Nevada, mining, water, farming, those type of things, foreign relations. Those are the top three that I would be looking at, or some sort of subcommittee. One of the things I would like your listeners and viewers to remember is that my website is gradyfornevada.com. That's GRADYFOR, Nevada spelled out.com. On that website, you'll find out about my positions. But one of the people who's endorsed me, the only one I think that's on my website right now, is Attorney Joe Brown. And I know that Mr. Brown is revered here in Southern Nevada.
He is very well known.
But he made this statement. He said, because of Tony's broad leadership, that when he gets to the Senate, he could be an immediate leader. We need somebody from Nevada who's going to be a leader.
Right.
So those are things that I'd like your
Yeah.
viewers to know. So
Yeah, 100%. Good point. Yeah. Joe Brown is been around a long time, very well known, very well respected.
yes,
He does a lot for the party when he can, and that's a nice thing to pick up. What are you doing to get yourself out there? Because, folks, running for office is not easy. It's a lot of time, takes money, a lot of pressure, and these folks need help. And go to Tony's website if you'd like to donate money. It takes money to run a campaign, folks. You know that. That's a fact of life. You need people walking around, knocking on doors, passing out literature. Go to the website if you want to volunteer.
Yes.
Or get a hold of Tony and say, I want to help you. And I'm sure you do. Do you have town halls coming up? Do you have meet and greets? Do you have fundraisers? What are you doing to get Tony Grady out there?
well, I'm coming on your show.
Okay,
Because you
well,
will
we're
tell everybody about. But
Yeah.
I am doing those things, and it would really help if people want to have events. That would really help me. So you can go to my website, gradyfornevada.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter. So that tells you like a running commentary of what we're
Right,
doing.
right.
And we can reach out to you. And when you sign up and you can indicate if you'd like to have an event, have a town hall. So what I'm doing is I'm the grassroots candidate. If your viewers need to know that I am the grassroots candidate. So I'm relying on the donations of your great audience. I'm relying on them wanting to share who I am with their friends and to have events. So right now we're doing a lot of smaller events all
good.
over the state. That's what we're
good.
doing. And eventually, probably more so after the holidays, because
Yeah.
we know that when holidays comes, nobody wants to talk about
Right.
politics.
Yeah, people are busy.
Right, they're busy. So the events will grow larger.
Yeah.
For right now, I'm doing smaller events with like up to around 50 people.
That's
and
great.
We're having discussions, and at those events, I answer questions, Q&A. But I really need people to donate to the campaign because Washington, D.C. is not very excited about me being in the race. And I think one of the reasons that they're not is that I'm not beholden to anybody but the constituents. I'm not going to be bought by Washington, D.C. because I'm not, but I'm here. So I spent the least amount in the lieutenant governor race, and I came in second to Stavros. Now, Stavros, your audience has known him for over 30 years. He's held 2 offices. Great guy, doing a great job for our state as lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
But just the fact that I came so close and the fact that I spent a lot less money shows that when you donate to me, I will be efficient with the funds that you give me, and I will use those to get my name out, because once people understand what I'm going to be able to do for them, when they understand who Tony Grady is, they like me. My last race, Stavros was up north, and we threw a fundraiser for him. And he said this is a small joke that I'd like to share with your audience. So in the middle of the fundraiser, he got up and it was addressing everybody, and he goes, "I want you all to know that I met Tony Grady during the campaign trail. Everybody liked him during the Lincoln Day circuit. They liked his military bearing. They liked his sincerity." Then he looked at me and smiled. Then he looked at the audience and he goes, "I sure am glad that nobody in Clark County knew who he was." Okay, so today I'm here because I want your audience, I want the folks in Clark County to know who I am, and also all over Nevada, because you know what? As senator, I'll be working again with Stavros. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
As senator, I will be trying to solve problems that Nevada has. And you know what? We can have a great team, and I want to be on that team.
Absolutely. I think the pairing of him and Governor Lombardo, both coming from Metro, they know what's going on.
Yes.
They have some good ideas, and working with somebody like yourself, where everybody's kind of symbiotic.
Yes.
We're going to get stuff done here.
That's right.
And we need to get stuff done here.
Yes.
And that is going to be very good. Info at GradyForNevada.com is the web address, so please go there again.
That's the email.
That's the email. I'm sorry.
So that's the email if they want to reach out directly, but it's Grady.
I'm sorry.
It's Grady. It's GradyForNevada.com.
Sorry.
Right.
And but yeah, if you want to donate a few dollars, you want to volunteer and go around and pass out some stuff, help with events, knock on doors, all of that is important, because this guy can't do it by himself. There's no candidate that can do it by himself, because he's working a lot of hours every day to get out there. And I think it's a great, you've got a good message.
Thank you.
You've got a very good message.
But it's a life message, and people can see results. So when you're talking about my book, I'll let you know when it's out, because people will be able to get it on Amazon.
Sign it for me? You're going to give me a...
I'll sign it for you because you had me here. I'll sign it. But what they're going to see in that book is a life of where my parents, who started on the bottom of the economic spectrum in this country, through American values that they taught me, enabled them to be successful, enabled me to be successful, and are the values I taught my children while they can be successful. And these are the values that make us Americans.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you're born.
Right.
It doesn't matter who your parents are.
Right.
It doesn't matter in terms of, we are not in a society that's royalty and dynasty and caste and this, that, and that. We're Americans.
Yeah.
And we need to get back to being Americans. And so the reason I'm happy about the book and the reason I wrote it is so that people will know why I stand where I stand politically. And I'm a constitutional originalist. I'm a fiscal conservative. Every mom knows, do not try to buy something you don't have money for. You know, if I could take some of the mama bears, we would fix the budget very quickly. I'd take them to Washington, D.C. They'd be all over that budget and we'd be fine. The problem is that we have people that are in office that are disconnected from the people whom they serve.
Right.
And you are whom we serve.
Right. Or they don't care, to be perfectly honest about it. What subject did your dad teach in college?
Well, it's very good. So I'll tell you another little story. In writing this book, I found out a lot of things because I have cousins that, of course, knew stories before I was born. So I was talking to everybody. Well, I found out my dad, when he was younger, one of the things he did while going through high school was he was working as a bricklayer. So as a bricklayer, he saw all the trades that were involved in building things. And I found out that bricklaying was like pretty hard. And he really didn't want to be a bricklayer, because it was like hard. But he really liked the trades. So he originally was a cabinet maker. And
okay.
after he got certified as a cabinet maker, continued at Hampton University, which used to be Hampton Institute, but it's one of the historically black colleges. He stayed 2 more years and got his bachelor's, and then he entered into teaching. So he was a vocational education professor, and then eventually got a master's degree from New York University. And that's what my dad did. And in foreign service, he would go to other countries to help them develop their secondary schooling systems and how you set up these types of things.
Very cool.
So that's what
awesome.
he was. That's what he did.
That's awesome. Quite a guy. All right, you don't even need to have a big house. As long as you got a big backyard, invite 50, 60 people over. Get a hold of this guy. He'd love to come over, talk to you, give you his outlook on things, what he wants to try to accomplish. So again, put your website out again.
And that's Grady. It's Grady for Nevada. So GRADYFOR, Nevada spelled out, NEVADA. So Nevada.com. So GradyForNevada.com. And if you go to that website, you'll find out what all my positions are. You will be able to sign up for our newsletter, and you'll be able to get on the
newsletter is a great idea.
Right, the team,
idea.
So that you know what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And one of the things I'd like to tell your readers is that we go into some in-depth things in the newsletter. There's been some discussion on what's been happening with Senator Tuberville. And we've had a lot of questions about what we've talked about, but one of the issues that I help my supporters learn, and even people who are not my supporters, is that there's many complicated things that happen in our government, and one of them is military readiness.
Right.
And though I am pro-life, my grandmother on my mother's side, my mother's mother, did not want her. My mother never knew her mother.
Wow.
But I'm very glad she chose to have her, so I could be here today to talk to you. We had a Democrat president say that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. We're not going in that direction right now. They're proliferating. But the reason I bring that up, and they go, why is he talking about that? I'm talking about because of this. I support Senator Tuberville in his concern about taxpayer funds being used for military people for abortion.
Right.
I support that. But one of the issues that may not be readily apparent to your audience here is that we also have military readiness issues. So though I support what he initially did by drawing a line in the sand, there's a certain point in time when you have to use another approach, because right now we have problems in the Ukraine, we have problems with the Middle East, and in continued process of holding up the promotion bill, the military promotion bill, it's starting to impact our military in very negative ways. So we talk about that in newsletters and why we are concerned about military readiness. And the reason being is because I understand military readiness. I spent 20 years in the Air Force. I've worked on budgetary issues, force structure. I've been at the tip of the spear in terms of being in uniform. So those are issues that are not simple issues. And I want your audience to understand I don't run away from problems. I run into them. I fly into them because I'm a test pilot. But you need leaders who want to solve problems, not who want to talk about sound bites and that there's quick answers.
Totally.
There are no quick answers. But I guarantee you this.
No.
I will work tirelessly to defend the rights of Nevadans and Americans according to the Constitution of the United States of America.
And that's what you want, folks, in a candidate. Simple, pure and simple, right there, right there. Anyway, I know you have another event because you're a busy guy. He's flying around all over, and I think I took for the show. I'm a recreational pilot. I love flying. What's the coolest thing about flying that you found for all those years? Of course, you're on a whole different level.
Well, first
as
of all,
a test pilot, and the aircraft that you flew are just unbelievable. What's the coolest thing you found out about flying?
well, I'm the coolest thing is that I was blessed by God to be able to fly. Mm-hmm. And the reason that's so cool is that I've always worn glasses. When you have me on next time, I'll tell you why. But my vision's not that poor. But I wear glasses because of a funny story that I'll relate later. So this will be a hook to get me on again. But one thing I want you to know is that...
So you're like just trying to find the center line, talking to the tower, and oh my God. And how many go-arounds did you do, for crying out loud?
My vision is my vision was 2025, 2030, and at the time that I went to the Air Force Academy, if you could get vision corrected, they would, if your vision was up to 2050 and it could be corrected to 2020, then you could fly. So that was a blessing for me.
Right.
But I want you to understand this in terms of flying. The molecules don't care. They don't care if you're a recreational pilot. They don't care if you're an astronaut. Okay? Okay, you can still die. So there are old pilots and there are bold pilots. There are no old bold pilots.
Yeah.
So the coolest thing about being able to fly for me is that I was blessed to be able to live my dream.
Yeah,
that was the
great.
coolest thing. And I want American children to live their dreams. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. That is absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have you back sooner than later. Good luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
And remember, check that website out if you are inclined to. And again, the most important thing is you have to vet these candidates to see where they stand, see if they match up with your philosophy or how they hit you. But the most important thing is got to get out and vote, folks.
Yes.
That's how we change things in the government. That's whether it's local, regional, national, whatever, you got to get out and vote. So anyway, thank you again. And very interesting show. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Pick Your Politics. For Tony, I'm Dennis Silvers, and we're going to see you back next week. So until then, so long, everybody.
Thank you for having me. Aim high, Nevada.